It was the dream job, a job that any physical therapist who had gotten into orthopedics would have dreamed of having. And that was being a physical therapist in the NBA, the National Basketball Association. And I had it, and I let it go. Hello, everybody. Zach Couples, physical therapist here, and I remember when I first started working in basketball, it was like a rehab candy store. We had time. We didn't have to worry about insurance and a limited number of visits. We had resources. We could get all the equipment that we wanted. And especially when I was in the D League, I was physical therapist, strength coach, nutrition person, sports scientist. I was able to influence so many more variables in comparison to the private sector or insurance-based physical therapy. It was awesome. And then I got the call. I walked into the general manager's office and I saw him there, and he had informed me that my position had been eliminated, which is a euphemism for you're fired. And it's weird, man. I had seen that same thing happen so many times to players, personnel, coaches, where they'd get the news that the organization let them go, and you just walk out and say, hey, you know, I got traded, or I got waived, or hey, they let me go, man. And you dap your fam and you're out. And it was my turn to do that. And I was very cordial on the way out and acted as though everyone else had acted when they were in that situation. And after I had left, got home, that's when I felt the suck. It was an immense low, and it was very difficult to deal with because, folks, this was my dream. It was, you know, growing up a basketball fan all my life, and to be there with a lot of the athletes that I looked up to growing up, and then it was gone, just like that. Folks, even though it was an immensely difficult situation for your boy, I grew so much from getting fired. I was able to redouble my efforts, get back into producing content and educating you wonderful, outstanding people. I was able to take my clinical skills to a wide variety of settings, and right now I'm in a really good place. I get to teach, I get to help people, I get to work with the people I want to work, and I'm in just as much of a physical therapy candy store as I was back then. And what I'm most grateful for going through that experience were the three major things that I learned from getting fired from pro sports. And it's these lessons that I've taken with me up to this point, and they continue to help me grow as a coach, clinician, and person. And I'm about to share them with you today because I think that if you can adopt some of these thought processes, it will help you with any types of difficult experiences that you may have either gone through or may go through in the future. So let's go ahead and give it a shot, and let's see what we got for you. Lesson 1, take ownership of the situation. Though I wasn't given a laundry list of reasons as to why I got fired, aside from my position was eliminated, and the GM said he would happily recommend me to another organization, I did a major postmortem to see what things went well, what things could I have done differently. This time in my life involved a lot of reflection, reading various things, and learning about my situation. And I did a lot of soul searching during this time. I was reflecting on what could I have done better? How could I become a better person after this very difficult situation that I dealt with? I read several books during that time, and one of the most impactful books that I read was Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Basically, it's a military spin on teaching you how to control what you can control. And the critical piece with this is forcing yourself to assume control of more than you think. Don't be a victim. And folks, when you assume this extreme amount of ownership, you realize the amount of influence your actions, beliefs, and thoughts have on a variety of situations. And for me, this book helped me realize the problems that I was causing as an employee. I had an ego. I didn't play nice with others, and I was a poor leader. And although I can't control the reactions of others, I can't control the decisions that people make. I can control my response. I can control the way that I behave in that situation. All of those things that I had listed were within my control. And that means if it's in my control, I can change it so I do better the next time I'm put in a similar situation. Extreme ownership helped me cultivate awareness of the things that I need to do better, the things I need to focus on to become a better person. And it helped guide me to do all the work needed to minimize these weaknesses and leverage my strengths. And I couldn't have done that if I had blamed everyone else for what happened. There's only one person I can blame, myself. Because the only person I can change, the only person that I can influence, the only person that I can affect is me. And that's going to allow me to grow significantly from this situation. The sooner we can realize how our actions and how our situation, our beliefs influence the multitude of experiences that we have day in and day out, the sooner we can make positive changes to make our situations even more better. Lesson 2, don't take being fired personal. If you're dating someone and you've tried everything you could to make it work, but you just realize that it's not a good fit, the best thing you can probably do is break up with that person, because you're not going to be happy, because you're not giving it your all and you're not into it. Ultimately, they're not going to be happy, and it's just not a good fit. You want to break up with that person so you both can move on and pursue the life that you want. Getting fired from a job is pretty much the same situation. Point blank, I got fired because I wasn't a good fit for the organization and what they needed. They needed skills that I didn't have. My skill set is likely better served for something else, like entertaining you wonderful, outstanding people. Fam, recognize fam. And to quote the philosopher Stuart Smalley, and that's okay. Ultimately, I wasn't going to succeed in the position that I was in for them. And for myself, it really wasn't fulfilling my personal wants and needs. And it took being fired to realize that. When I was in basketball, I had to stop blogging, I had to stop teaching, I had to stop these interactions that you and I are having, and I really miss that. And it took getting fired, and it took revamping ZachCouples.com to realize just how much I missed that. I wasn't a good fit. They weren't a good fit. We weren't a good fit, and Memphis did the right thing. Unless you are super malicious and not doing your job, you have to recognize that it's likely not a you problem, but a fit problem. And when you recognize this and you can review your strengths and what you do best, it's going to better help you pivot to a place and position where you want to be. Whether that's starting your own business like your boy did, or finding an employer who does need the skill set that you offer, which is what I have with Elevate Sports Performance and Healthcare. You didn't get fired because you're a bad person, unless, you set the office on fire or something, fam, because you aren't. You're just not the right person. And in that situation, your boy Big Z was not the right person. As the great philosopher Michael Corleone once said, it's not personal. It's strictly business. The third lesson that I learned from getting fired is the power of spite. Growing up, one of my biggest heroes was Michael Jordan. Hey, when you're from Illinois, you got to rep the Bulls, and the Bulls were killing it. But I loved MJ because he was such a competitor. He was so good at what he did, just unbelievable athlete. And I always wondered, what was it that drove Michael Jordan to be the GOAT? And if you've seen The Last Dance, you'll kind of know why. He's a little crazy because he uses spite a ton to motivate him to be great, often to the point where he was making up stories to keep him motivated to play at a high level. And it's funny, when I saw this and I saw how much MJ used spite to fuel his win, I felt that. I felt that energy that he gained from that, because that's something that I used a bunch to also push myself to do better. Whether someone didn't believe in me or someone did me wrong or whatever story I ended up making up, I used that to push, drive, and continue to get better at whatever it is that I wanted to do. Even though you need to recognize your role when things go awry and change some of the negative parts of you. And you also can't take something personal, such as being fired. That doesn't mean that you can't make up a story that really fires you up to help you push yourself to the next level. So I'm like, you want to fire me? Okay, fine. I'm going to show you why you made that mistake. And I took that personally. And you could bet your bottom dollar that I use that as motivation to push myself to really go hard on ZachCouples.com, become a much better clinician. Using that spite, that fire, helped me grow on many levels and push to being as excellent as I possibly can be. Having a little bit of spite is an immensely useful strategy, but user beware. You can't let your spite lead you to being bitter and unfulfilled, which early in my life, something that totally happened. Because I'd use that spite, that passion, that drive to push myself, but the problem was I never got satisfied, and I ended up becoming resentful. And that is really the double-edged sword of using this as a motivator. Using spite and anger to push you to the next level is really at best a short-term strategy, because you're always going to have to find an enemy, and you're never going to be grateful because you're always going to be battling against that enemy. And the way you balance this out is having gratitude. It's good to continue to push, continue to innovate, continue to try and get better. But if you're not grateful for how far you've come and what you've accomplished, you're going to end up being bitter and resentful. And ultimately, you're not going to be satisfied with the progress that you've made. Balancing some righteous spite and anger with gratitude allows you to get the best of both worlds. Because the spite gives you that short-term boost to push yourself to doing things that you didn't think you can do. At the same time, gratitude keeps that in check and makes sure you don't fall down a path of becoming bitter, resentful, and just an incredibly unhappy person. Although getting fired from basketball was immensely stressful, challenging, and difficult, I ultimately grew immensely from that situation, and I was really able to leverage my strengths and find what really made me happy and get the most out of my skill set, which is this right here. So I am forever grateful to go through that experience, even though at the time I totally thought it was the dream job, and it was very difficult. But I'm in a much better place now, and I would have never looked back from that experience. So thank you for putting me through that experience. To recap, if you've ever gone through or are going through an experience like this, do a postmortem, look at what you could have done differently, and take ownership of the things that you can improve upon. Also, don't take it personal. It's about fit, it's not about you. And the last thing is use a little bit of spite to motivate you to the next level, but don't push yourself too far that you end up becoming bitter. Always be grateful for the process at hand. If you like this type of content and you want to learn more from your boy Big Z, please check me out at ZachCouples.com. And while you're here on the good old YouTubes or wherever you're listening to this, hit the subscribe button, notification bell, give it a like, or hit 5 stars, leave a review so the fam can keep growing. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in. You've been an incredible, outstanding audience. Keep it real, but not to the extent where things go wrong. Stay hungry, stay learning, stay moving, and I'll see you next time. Deuces.